Okay, this video is going to cover the even problems 36 to 42. The directions are: solve each inequality, give the solution set in both interval and graph forms. Okay, recall that we solve inequalities the same way that we solve equalities or equations. The only difference is that when we multiply or divide by a negative, you flip the direction of the inequality. Or, if the variable's on the wrong side, meaning the right side of the inequality, you have to rewrite the equation, the inequality, so that the variable's on the left. Okay, so let's do this problem. First thing we want to do is subtract 2. 3x is less than 5 minus 2 is 3. Divide by 3. If we're dividing by a positive, do not flip the inequality, so the solution is x less than 1. Now the directions also said give the solution set in interval and graph forms. So draw a number line graph, put a few numbers on the graph. I'll put the number 1 in question here, and then 2 numbers on either side. So 0 is less than 1, so it goes on the left. 2 is greater than 1, goes on the right. Okay, we use parentheses when there's no equal sign underneath the inequality. So I'm going to use a parenthesis here, and we want the numbers less than 1, which means shade to the left. So I'm going to have a parenthesis on the 1 and shade to the left. That's the number line graph. Okay, now we want the interval notation. Recall that this is keeps going and going and going into the negative direction, which it will approach negative infinity. And then it stops at 1. We always put parentheses around infinities because you can never get to infinity and equal infinity. And you'll notice that we used a parenthesis on the 1 in the graph, so we will use a parenthesis also in the interval notation. So here's the solution, the graph, and the interval. Okay, number 38. We have all these fractions, and I know how much you don't like fractions, so if we want to get rid of them, let's multiply through by the common denominator. Well, the common denominator in this case between 4, 5, and 2 is 20. So let's multiply through by 20. So we're going to multiply each term by 20 so that we can get rid of the fractions. If you go ahead and show the multiplication by each term, you're less likely to make a mistake. Okay, here the 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Bring down the less than. 5 into 20 goes 4 times. 4 times d is 4d. Bring down the plus sign. 2 into 20 goes 10 times. 10 times 1 is 10. Right now we're trying to solve for d, so I want to subtract the 10. So I get 5 is less than 4d. I'm trying to get the d by itself, so I'm going to divide by 4. Once again, I divided by a positive number, so I will not flip the inequality. So you get d and 5/4. Well, notice how the variable is on the wrong side. So now we need to rewrite this, flipping everything. So we're just going to rewrite it, switching it, and that's going to be d greater than 5/4. These two are equal. These are equivalent expressions. We should always write our inequalities with the variables on the left. Therefore, our graph will be easier to figure out. Okay, I'm going to put just 2 numbers on this number line. I'm going to put 0 and 5/4. Okay, and again, if we look at the inequality symbol, there's no equal sign, so we will use a parenthesis on the 5/4. And then this is greater than, so we are shading to the right numbers that are greater than 5/4. There's your number line graph, and now from the graph, determine your interval. The smallest number in the interval would be 5/4. The largest number in the interval keeps going and going and going to infinity, this time positive infinity. Always parentheses on infinity. Look to your graph or your inequality to determine what you need around the 5/4. No equal sign, use parentheses. Okay, number 40. The first thing I would do with this problem is rewrite the problem getting rid of this minus a minus. So I'm going to get t divided by negative 5 minus a minus is plus 1.8 greater than or equal to negative 6.2. Okay, now I want to subtract 1.8 from both sides. And I get t divided by negative 5 greater than or equal to, when you do this arithmetic, you get negative 8. Here, to get rid of the division, we're going to multiply both sides by negative 5. Notice how I am multiplying by a negative, so I will flip the direction of this inequality to be less than or equal to. Negative times a negative is a positive 40. So there's your solution. Number line graph. I'll put 40 in the center. 39 is less than, so it's on the left. 41 is greater than, it's on the right. Look to your inequality symbol. It does have an equal sign, so I will use a bracket. It's less than, so less than which means shade to the left. So a bracket on the 40, shade to the left. Okay, the smallest number in the interval, once again, is negative infinity because it keeps going and going and going. The largest number in the interval of the solution would be 40. We always use parentheses around infinity, and you'll notice that we had an equal sign, so we used a bracket on the 40, which means we will also use a bracket on the 40 for the interval. Okay, here's your last even problem. Notice that this has two inequality symbols. This one is called the compound inequality. Okay, and we also refer to this as the between inequality. This is red. X is between two numbers. So what we're trying to do is get the x by itself in the center. That means I need to get rid of the plus 2. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 2, not only from the center, but also on both sides. So that 2's cancel from the center, leaving you x. Bring down your less than symbols. 8 minus 2 is 6. 13 minus 2 is 11. There's your solution, and that's red. X is between 6 and 11. So let's draw the number line. On these problems, we will just use the two numbers, 6 and 11. And we'll look at this inequality. That'll tell us whether we're going to put a bracket or parenthesis on the 6, and there's no equal, so we're going to put a parenthesis. Look to the next inequality where the 11 is. You'll notice there's no equal sign on that one, so we're also going to use a parenthesis on the 11. Shade in between. There's your number line graph. Now your interval. The smallest number in the interval is 6. The largest number in the interval is 11, and go directly from either your graph or your inequality solution. No equals, parentheses on both sides. Okay, so that completes the even inequality problems.